Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona here with Mike Beer coming at you from Pimlico to talk about some Pick 5 strategy for Black-Eyed Susan Friday. Mike and I already did an individual preview of the feature race on this card, the Black-Eyed Susan, but that's not the only difficult race to handicap in this Pick 5 sequence. A lot of large fields and some really fascinating races to dive into, so you want to get your handicapping past performance plan set for this weekend. Head on over to shop.drf.com to check out all of our past performance plans. You can also pick up the betting strategies for the Saturday card at Pimlico. I'll be writing those with our Mid-Atlantic correspondent Patrick Moquin, so find out more about how you can get your DRFPPs at shop.drf.com. And Mike, I was referencing how interesting these races are to handicap. It's a really fun sequence on Friday.
Yeah, really fun, really challenging one too. It's hard to find the horses that you could, sort of lean on with a ton of confidence here. These are wide open races.
And I know you can see behind us, it's looking a little wet right now. We're recording this on Tuesday. Hopefully that rain clears away and these turf races do stay on the grass, because they did draw some really nice fields for the turf races on these cards, and it makes this an interesting sequence to handicap. We're going to go through this sequence highlighting our horses that we're going to key, use, and defend. We'll show our grids at the end. Horses that we really want to use and highlight in these sequences, not necessarily giving out one ticket, but you can cobble together our opinions, combine them with yours to create your tickets for how you want to play these sequences depending on your budget. Mike, let's dive right into the handicapping with race 9, which kicks off this late pick 5 sequence. It is the Hilltop Stakes for the 3-year-old fillies going the 1 mile distance on the grass course, and one of the smaller fields in this sequence, but that doesn't necessarily make it an easy one to handicap, because when I went through this field, I really did not see a standout.
Yeah, I didn't either. This race is really, really challenging, even though it doesn't contain as big a field as some of the races we're going to get to. This race I thought was really, really tough, and more than anything else too, David, I don't know how they're going to bet it, but the horses who are kind of the shorter prices on the morning line, I'm not sure that I'm so on board with a couple of those.
And let's go to your grid first for this race, Mike, and this is the one where I think you want to spread a little bit, because, and I get that approach, because it's hard to really have a strong opinion in this race, not only handicapping this race for when it's going to be run on Friday, but also doing it so far ahead of time, because there are some horses that are cross-entered in here in a stakes race at Horseshoe Indianapolis on Wednesday, so we want to see who ends up going there, who ends up running here, so this field might get reduced a little bit, but I can understand wanting some coverage in this spot.
Yeah, that is why I threw some extra horses in here, because it just kind of feels like this field is going to look a little bit different come Friday. We'll see how that all shakes out. Really, I was most interested in the 2 horses that are drawn to the 2 inside posts here, and they are 2 of the horses that are cross-entered in that race at Indy. So I'm kind of hoping that they run here, because I think Princess Attitude, has a lot of ability for Vicky Oliver. I think there's a really good trip coming for this horse from the rail. And I thought Play with Fire, I know there's nothing flashy about her PPs, David, but I think that she's run well in all of her races, and I think she ran particularly well last time, where she moved a little bit too early, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was a little bothered by her lack of finish in the last couple of races. That's the number 2, Play with Fire, but she might appreciate getting back on a firm course if this rain eventually goes away. I know that's something that her trainer, Brendan Walsh, is hoping for, if she is one that ends up running here instead of in Indianapolis. I did make the number 1, Princess Attitude, my only key horse in this race as we take a look at my grid here, just trying to narrow down a little bit in a race that I found difficult to decipher. And if I'm right in this first leg, it's going to give me some room to spread a little bit more with some opinions later on in the sequence. And I agree with everything you were saying about Princess Attitude. She's taken a little bit of while to come around, but she's got a really nice pedigree on her, and I liked the grit that she showed last time when she really dug in and was never letting anybody get to her at the end of that race at Keeneland. And also, she beat older horses in that race, so I don't want to just gloss over that fact. She beat some horses who had already run some faster speed figures, so I think that she might not be facing nearly as tough a field as some others that would be stepping up out of a maiden race against 3-year-old fillies into this stakes event. Mike, let's move on to the next race of this sequence, and it is a doozy. Race 10 is the Miss Preakness. The Black-Eyed Susan is the race that gets top billing on this Friday card, but the Miss Preakness might really be the star event of the day, because you've got 13 runners signed on, and unlike in the Black-Eyed Susan, there are some horses that have run some fast speed figures in this race. There's real quality among this field, and I'm going to be interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, me too. This is, to me, is the best race on the entire card on Friday. There is so much going on in here, so many different horses that can win, and ultimately, the longer I looked at it, I actually changed my opinion a little bit the second time I went through it. One thing that didn't really change for me, though, David, is that I think the number 8, Echo Sound, might be the horse to beat in here. You know, it's her 3-year-old debut here. She's going to have to be ready off the layoff. And she's going to have to be ready against a big field of some really good horses. But every one of her races is good. She has speed, but she doesn't need the lead, so I can see her getting the right trip in here. I think this horse is going to be really, really tough if she's ready off the bench.
I agree. She did everything right during her 2-year-old season. Her only loss in that Fern Creek, she did not get an ideal trip in that race. She was never in the right position trying to slice between traffic, kept getting pushed down towards the inside. She arguably could have won that race with a better journey. We'll see if the layoff affects her, but she does feel like one that both you and I have a lot of respect for in here. Mike, I was really interested in the number 11, You'll Be Back. I know she's a horse that we both had some affinity for in the past. She's turning back in distance here. I've got her as one of my key horses. How did you assess her?
Yeah, I'm going to use her in this race. I didn't make her a key, only because she's another horse. Obviously, she's got a little bit of a laugh here, but she's also, David, she's such a difficult horse to ride. And in a big field like this, I'm just wondering if she's going to be able to get the trip that she needs in here. I do think that she's a sprinter and not a router. This is the right race to run her in. I think she's super dangerous in here. I'm definitely using her. One of the other keys for me was the 10 Mila Rose, so I think it's going to be a big price in here. No figures for her. She's 2 for 2. She's in a fast-paced sprint here, and she really finishes in her races. I really like that about her, so I wanted to sort of have a lot of my money, my pick 5 money, tied up into her because I think she's going to be a price in this race. We can move on from Migrant to yours, but before we do that, I just want to hit one horse who I think we're going to disagree on in this race a little bit. I got the 9 Long Neck Paula in there, so I definitely want to use her. I think you're more against her than I am.
Yeah, I wonder if she's really moved forward from her 2-year-old to 3-year-old season, but I know this is a horse that you've had some affinity for going back to last year, and she did show a lot of talent early on. For her, Mike, I just worry about how much pace appears to be signed on in this race, and I think that's a factor that we do have to discuss. It's a reason why your long shot, the number 10, Mila Rose, might have a bigger chance because she is a horse that wants to be finishing at the end, and it feels like they could be moving up front. Of those horses that could be forwardly placed, Mike, the one that I was most afraid of is the number 5, Family, making her first start off the trainer switch to the Saffie Joseph barn. First start on the dirt as well, but this horse showed a lot of talent at Turfway Park, and she's got nothing but dirt on the bottom side of her pedigree. And also, as a daughter of Sharp Azteca, she shouldn't mind switching over to this main track. And I'm not going to be surprised when she's the quickest early and when she's able to take them the farthest on the front end.
I won't disagree with any of that stuff. I mean, it'll be interesting too. Like, I don't worry about them so much going from synthetic to dirt as I do going the other way around.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to really worry about her switching to dirt here. I'm going to assume that she'll handle it. You know, we'll see. This is just such a tough race. There's a lot of other speed for her to deal with here, along with the surface switch. And I just kind of felt like she might not be a great price, and that's kind of why I shied away from her.
Yeah, I mentioned the number 11, You'll Be Back. I've got her as a key horse. I didn't love the trip that she got in her last sprint race. She's turning back here. And another turn back in this race, Mike, that we definitely have to mention is the number 12, Vodka with a Twist, a horse that ran some speed figures during her 2-year-old season that would make her competitive in here. They tried to go longer with her, and I get it. It kind of worked in the Breeders' Cup. She finished second in that race, but 2 routes since then haven't really gone her way, and they might be turning her back to the right distance here.
It does feel like she's a sprinter, and this is probably the right race to run her in. I have no real argument against her in here, and she is one of the horses who I do have on my ticket. More is kind of a backup, though, because she's another horse. I think she'll take money in this race, and I was kind of looking for better prices.
Yeah, I found this to be a super competitive race, and it's one where I wanted to spread a little bit. You can see that from the 3 keys that I used in this race. I think Mike and I are going to try to narrow things down a little bit more when we get to the next race, the Very One Stakes, going 5 furlongs on the turf for the fillies and mares, Mike. And I think the distance is the only major question for the horse that both of us think is the horse to beat, Loon Cry.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, you know, I guess if you're thinking that she's more of a 6 furlong New York kind of turf sprinter, then maybe this just isn't the right race for her. The flip side of that is she has run well the one time they did go show her. That was a really good performance. And more than that, David, I just think she's found a really good spot here to come back. And I think she's good, and I think her good race makes her better than these horses.
There is plenty of speed in this race on paper for her to run into. It's just a matter of whether or not that speed comes back going the 5 furlong distance. Because as you said, she's been more of that 6 furlong specialist. And also, this is a race I'll be interested to see the scratches, because there are a lot of horses entered here where it seems like this might be an ambitious spot for them. So you wonder if we'll take a look at the entries and some horses will come out. Any speed coming out of this race is not going to help Loon Cry. Mike, there's one horse that I wanted to upgrade to use as a key along with Loon Cry, and that is one of those horses that might look a little overmatched at first glance, the number 5, Mendy's Honey. She is one of the few in here that is entered coming out of Charlestown, so at least you know the distance is not a problem for her. She's a 4.5 furlong specialist. She's got to handle the turf, though, as she tries it for the first time, but there's real pedigree with this filly. She's by Mendelssohn, who's a 14% turf sprint sire, and you look at the dam side, her dam was a good synth horse who did handle the turf, and she's a half to 2 turf winners. And when I watch her run, she's got those long strides of a horse who should take to turf just fine. And I wonder if she might fly a little under the radar.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what kind of price she is too. She's one of the horses that I have as a use in here. To be honest, she's not the kind of horse I'm ever looking to really bet on the win end, but I definitely want to use her in a bet like the pick 5 because I saw all the same things you saw. There's speed here. There's a ton of pedigree for her to really not only to handle the turf, David, but maybe to even improve on it. I definitely want to use that horse. I'm also, I just threw in a horse as a backup, the number 2, Maserati.
Yeah.
She's just logical in here. I don't think she's any kind of a superstar, but she can get the right kind of trip perhaps in this race, and she just makes a lot of sense in here.
Yeah, I don't love her recent form, but she is that 5 furlong specialist. And if some speed does come out of this race drawn to her outside, it's going to really help her cause because she'll be dangerous if she gets out to the front end. Mike, we should just give a quick mention to Accomplished Girl, the number 14, drawn all the way on the outside, because she's got races that could crush this field. It's just a matter of whether or not she can produce them now in the Steve Asmussen barn.
I'm a little concerned about her recent form, and I say that, realizing that she's won a couple of recent stakes races going 5.5 down at the fairgrounds. So maybe it's not fair to be critical of her recent form. I just don't think she's as good as she used to be. She obviously doesn't have an ideal post in this race. And I was also, the longer I looked at her, just concerned that, especially nowadays, every time they have to take her off Lasix, she doesn't really seem to fire her A race, and she has to race off Lasix in this spot.
Yeah, and if this field holds together, it's a wide post. You don't want to get hung out wide around the one turn of this 5 furlong distance at Pimlico. Let's move on to the penultimate race of this sequence. Race 12 is the Grade 3 Pimlico Special, run at the same distance as the Preakness on Saturday, 1 mile and 3/16. And Mike, this is a pretty nice field for the Pimlico Special. There's some real talent in here, including some up-and-comers that are in really good form on the way into this race. But you have to consider Pyrenees the horse to beat after he won this last year and went on to validate that performance with some big efforts through the summer.
Was really good winning this race last year as well. He's the horse, I think, the logical starting off point here. There's a layoff that you have to deal with. We haven't seen him since the Breeders' Cup Classic, where the running line's pretty ugly, and he was never winning that race, but he did not get a good trip in there at all. He had a pretty big excuse, I thought. I really liked basically everything he did last year, David, and if he comes back ready off the layoff here, and he has come back ready off the layoff in the past, he's going to be pretty hard to beat.
We both have Pyrenees in the use category. I think we doubt that he's going to offer value coming off that long layoff, even though we recognize he's the one to beat. We both have interest in Brad Cox horses, Mike. You have a little more interested in one of them than I am, the number 3, Encino. Talk a little bit about him.
Yeah, he's just a horse who I do feel like he's going to be a price in this race, Encino, and he's just a horse I've been a fan of, David. We've talked about it a little bit before we came on camera here, and I think there's a real argument to be made that he's not quite as good on dirt as he is on the all-weather surface. That's very valid. He's just a horse who I felt like shaped with tons of potential last year, and I know he's been a speed horse for most of his career. He's got that one stakes win. His third career start in the Battaglia, I know it was on synthetic, where they rated him, and he actually looked very comfortable running like that. He ran a really good race that day. Maybe they just don't think he's capable of that anymore. I want them to sort of sit a little bit in this race, try to get a different trip for him, and see if he's effective that way, because he ran really well last time in a fast race on all weather. I do think his good race gives him a shot in here, and I think he's going to be a price.
I think he's going to be a bigger price than the horse that I used as my only key, the other Brad Cox runner, the number 8 Star of Wonder. But I do like Star of Wonder's versatility, Mike, and he just feels like the kind of horse that has been targeted at this race for a while. He's always supposed to have been this kind of horse that wants to go 2 turns in graded stakes on the dirt. He's won 4 or 5, but they've just raced him through all of his allowance conditions. They haven't gotten overly ambitious too early, so I like that about him. They've also tried out a variety of running styles, and he's fine with all of it, but he does have the tactical speed to at least get that good position up close to the pace if they don't go too fast. And I just think this added distance is really going to work for him. And I know it's a stakes debut. He's coming off Lasix, all of that. Cox has amazing numbers with last out winners coming off Lasix, a stat that's really bad for a lot of trainers. Cox excels with these types.
Yeah, I'm not going to add anything to that. Yeah, I have him as a key in this race as well. I think he's super dangerous in this race. I do want to get your opinion on one thing that bothers me a little bit about Star of Wonder, though, and it almost cost him last time at Aqueduct. But this horse, and basically every one of his starts, he's not great out of the gate here. He's got to break better against this field.
He does. At least he's not drawn the rail. He's outside, so if he breaks a little slowly, maybe they can get to the outside. Mike, we should at least mention the number 1, Phileas Fogg. He's been in great form recently, was a dominant winner of the Excelsior last time. I don't love the rail draw for him because it kind of feels like his hand is forced.
I agree with that, but I'm afraid of this horse in the form that he's in right now, and I do have him on my ticket pocket. I do not want to lose to Phileas Fogg. If it's a wet track, he handles that. He's got plenty of speed from the rail. His recent form is excellent. I don't want to get knocked out by this horse.
I even threw the number 6 Just Steal into my defend category. He ran better than I expected last time in the Churchill Downs, and he once was a horse that was supposed to handle distances like this. He ran so well in the Arkansas Derby last year. We'll see if he still has some run in his legs as a 4-year-old. Let's move on to the Black-Eyed Susan. And Mike, this is a race that's totally wide open. We talked about it when we did our individual preview of this race as the Friday race of the day. It is one where I thought the pace situation was a little bit murky, and that's one thing that led me to the horse that I liked in this race. But I know that you were interested in a horse that does have some tactical speed, so maybe can set up shop outside.
Yeah, Martha, number 8, I think is a horse who is going to fall into a really good trip here. I'm a little concerned that 9 furlongs isn't ideal for her, but I think with the right trip, she can get it, and against these horses, I think she can get it. I just like her, David, as a horse, and I liked her race 2 starts back in particular, so I was kind of leaning on her, but really, David, this is a race where it's more about who I don't like than who I do like, and the horses that I do like are the 3, the 7, and the 8, and I'm going to try to get through this pick 5 with those 3 horses.
Yeah, we've got 2 of the same horses in the key category. I think we both respect the number 3, Margie's Intention. She is just very logical. First off the switch to Brad Cox. She can handle the distance. The number 7, Reply, seems like a horse that's going to get the distance. We'll just see how fast she's able to do it because she's got to get a little bit faster. The horse that we differ on, Mike, that I put in the key category is the number 6, Paris Lily. I just think she's going to be sent to the front end given how successful she was using front-running tactics last time, and I wonder how aggressive others are going to be in this race trying to go after her. And I'm a little concerned about the 9 furlongs, but if they don't really go after her on the front end, maybe she can get it, and she at least is a horse that's been improving with every race, so she's one that I definitely wanted to include in here.
Can't knock her. I didn't have her in mind, maybe mostly because of the 9 furlong distance fight. I wasn't convinced about, but I have really no knocks on her. I like that she finally took that step forward last time and earned a competitive figure.
And I see, Mike, you're taking a stand here. It's going to be your 3 horses or bust in this race. If you get alive to them, you'll just live or die
Take
with
my
those 3.
chances.
So, Mike, let's wrap it up by talking a little bit about strategy. And since I was just talking about yours, let's go to your grid first and see how you're going to put this thing together.
Yeah, I've struggled to find the horses that I really wanted to lean on. One of the horses that I ultimately decided to do that with was in that wide open turf sprint race where even though it's the kind of race where I don't love anybody, I do think that the favorite makes tons of sense in that race. And so I'm going to really lean on that horse and just try to let that one get me through it. We talked about the Miss Preakness as maybe the toughest race on the card, and I wanted to use the one, the layoff is the main concern for me with that race with the horse that I have on top, but I also wanted to use the Asmussen Closer in that race because there's a ton of pace. That horse is going to be a price.
Yeah, I really want to be right about 2 horses in this sequence if I'm going to hit this pick 5. So we take a look at my full grid for this race, and they are the number 1, Princess Attitude, in the first leg, the Hilltop. And if I can be right about her, maybe it'll set me up to have some coverage in some later legs. And the other horse for me is that Cox horse in the Pimlico Special, the number 8, Star of Wonder. I'm going to use Pyrenees as a backup in that race, but I really want to get Star of Wonder home as a key horse so I can get alive to all of the horses that I like in the Miss Preakness, and there are plenty of them, as well as all of the horses that I kind of had open in the Black-Eyed Susan because that is such a wide open race.
Yeah, I like the way you laid out your ticket too. If you're right in that first leg, it just opens everything up for you.
Well, everybody, let us know how you're going to play this pick 5 sequence, whether you're putting together a grid or just playing a straight caveman wager. Leave it in the comments. Let us know if there are any horses that you really like in these 5 races that make up the pick 5 on Black-Eyed Susan Friday. And good luck if you're trying to tackle the sequence that's ending with the Black-Eyed Susan.